to turn, I'm on the impeachment topic today. I really want to make sure that I'm making the points that I can make them as clearly as I can, and we're clearly going to have to be talking about this for months on end. But I wanted to break down the impeachment into discussion today in two parts. This is impeachment as cover. Understand that the American left is terrified that their involvement in the coup inside the FBI and the DOJ in cooking up false charges of Russia-Trump collusion, cooking up the whole Papadopoulos Mifsud adventure where the CIA, it appears, planted a CIA asset to give false information to Papadopoulos, who then turned around and gave it to Alexander Downer of Australia, who then used it to launch the impeachment effort. Understand that there are many Democrats in Washington, inside FBI and DOJ, and inside our government, who do not want that truth to come out. So moving toward impeachment is a cover, essentially. It gives them cover from media attention, from public attention, from media scrutiny on what happened, what brought about the Russia-Trump collusion hoax, what brought about the completely unnecessary and expensive Mueller investigation. What brought that out? These people in Washington do not want that discussion to be had in America. I'm going to play a brief clip for you. This is Stephen Miller. He is a White House guy. I think he's Trump's speechwriter, but he's also a guy who had a he has a clip. The deep state is terrified of being exposed. You know, we had a hard time with these clips today. Oh, you have it. Yay. Okay. I want to play this, please, for our listeners.
Well, I do agree that Senate Democrats are probably terrified about the cliff they're being driven over by Pelosi and the radical election nullifying Democrats in the House of Representatives. And so I don't doubt that's the case. But let's also be clear what the even deeper fear is. The deepest fear of all is the deep state is terrified of being exposed, Lou. What we have right now is a situation in which the Attorney General of the United States and John Durham are going to get to the bottom of what really happened in 2016. And we're going to find out what went on and what was done to try and sabotage this president and try to sabotage this administration. And that has the deep state and their Democrat allies terrified.
Great summary. That is exactly what is happening in Washington. Exactly. This guy, and you think about the just astonishing, he's so forthcoming. He's not apologetic. He's not saying, well, we think maybe this is what is happening. People who've been paying close attention understand that the Democrats decided early on, after President Trump the duly elected president won the election in 2016, they decided this guy has to go. They tried the Russia-Trump collusion. They tried lying to the FISA court to get this effort going to take out Trump. They also, though, and why I want to focus in this segment on impeachment as a cover is because so many of them were right in the middle of it, and it's the last thing they want the American people to understand. One thing happening in Washington right now is this. The Senate, Chairman Chuck Grassley, he's now chairman of finance, he used to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee. He wrote a letter to the Department of Justice first tried in July of 2017. So Trump's already in, the whole Trump-Russia collusion thing is underway and being investigated. And Chuck Grassley, Chairman Grassley, wrote a letter with another chairman to the Justice Department. He said there was meddling. There was meddling in the U.S. election, meddling by the Ukrainian government at the behest of Democrats. So he is giving heads up to the DOJ. This is the chairman of the Finance Committee, or that time he was chairman of the Judiciary, saying you need to look into the collusion between the Democrats and the Ukrainian government when the Democrats are trying to stir up trouble, trying to encourage the Ukrainian government to interfere in America's elections. The Department of Justice at that point, even though we had the duly elected president of the United States and legislative executive branch under his control, we had Rod Rosenstein in charge, and we had the Mueller investigation going on, and the Grassley letter went nowhere. Not going to do a thing about it. They're just going to let us sit there and let it happen. Now, though, there is another letter, Grassley, and now Senate Homeland Security Chairman Ron Johnson, went back, September 27th letter, went back to Justice Department and say, we want you to look into the brazen efforts by the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton campaign to use the government of Ukraine for the express purpose of finding negative information on then candidate Trump in order to undermine his campaign. So now you're hearing, to get that, really let that sink in, the Democrats, the last thing they want to have is the average Joe understand that it was Hillary and the Democrats stirring things up with the Ukraine, trying to get the Ukrainian government to help interfere in America's election, and you had Grassley notifying the DOJ, not going to do a thing about it under the Rosenstein-Mueller team, and you have him now again saying, you need to be looking into this. This is Hillary and the DNC using the Ukraine. So I'm telling you, folks, there was great nervousness in Washington because a lot of people understood what the Democrats, the DNC, and Hillary were doing, trying to stir up trouble in the 2016 election, trying to get the Ukrainians to interfere in America's elections. So what the Democrats settle on is something to actually go after impeachment over. Trump having a conversation with Zelensky saying, hey, why don't you look into this 2016 stuff? Why don't you look into what Biden did? And we have, by the way, I want to remind our listeners, because another thing, when people aren't informed, when you tell them something like, well, Joe Biden actually admitted on open television that he did arm twist the Ukrainian government to force them to drop a criminal investigation of a company in which his son sat on the board, and Biden threatened them to withhold $1 billion worth of aid. My lovely friend at dinner, I was talking about earlier, I told that to her. I said, and she said, that couldn't be true. If that was true, they would have arrested him. Where is this in the news? Folks, you have to be willing to dive in and understand what's happening, understand the desperation in the Democrat Party to turn attention from their genuine wrongdoing, including Hillary, and the non-wrongdoing that they're trying to pile on Trump. So we have, I believe, wonderful Matt, we have a little clip of Joe Biden. I've played this a couple times recently, but you gotta listen. It's short, sweet, and to the point. He's admitting, bragging that he essentially bribed the Ukrainian government, threatened to withhold $1 billion in aid if they wouldn't stop investigating a company on which his son was on the board.
I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here, and I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Okay, so I'm trying to send a little note to Matt the Wonderful. Okay, so there you have it. There you have, Biden. This is kind of stuff they cannot stand to have come out. One last thing I want to mention is being discussed in Washington, and again, I'm getting at the idea. A lot of the impeachment effort, I know that the Democrats want to get rid of Trump. I know they want to get rid of him because, as Congressman Al Green from Texas acknowledged, if we don't get rid of him, he's going to win again in 2020. They want to get rid of Trump for many, many reasons. One is because he really is draining their Democrat uniparty swamp. He is doing that. He's also cleaning up our relationships with other countries. He's pointing out what Biden did in the Ukraine when he arm twisted, as you just heard him say, arm twisted the government to drop an investigation involving his son's company. Trump is exposing this stuff. So the idea that the Democrats are complaining that President Trump made mention of this, you have to get what they're saying. Think of what they're saying. They're saying they can be corrupt. Biden can be corrupt to the core. Biden can brag on national television. But when Trump says, I think you should look into this, he says that to Zelensky, you should look into this, Ukrainians. That's what's impeachable. You have to recognize the hypocrisy, the absurdity, the outrageous nature of this effort. It is based on nothing. It is based on no wrongdoing at all. But I'm telling you, you may know these things because you listen to my show or you read a lot. But the average Joe American, even people who voted Republican, the way the media carries the story, and they keep talking about Trump and impeachment and conspiracy, and they think, well, maybe I don't understand. Maybe that really was a bad thing that Trump said that in that phone call. Back to my conversation with my friend at dinner. She said, well, he said in the phone call that he should look into Biden's wrongdoing. I'm like, yeah, Yeah, he did. He's not hiding that at all. He released the transcript. He's not hiding it. But they're able to concoct this perception that there is a unbelievable, clear, everyone should recognize it, wrongdoing, because Trump is saying you should look into the wrongdoing the Democrats engaged in that we all already know about. That's what Trump is really saying. One little piece of this, I was going to mention to you, another bit of the effort of the people on the conservatives in Washington trying to point out some of the wrongdoing. In this September 27th letter I mentioned by Grassley and Ron Johnson to the Justice Department, they pointed out someone named Alexandra Chalupa. Her last name is Chalupa, and this is a woman, she's a daughter of Ukrainian immigrants. She's a Dem operative, and she has been in America working to help the Democrats and as a connection with Ukraine. So these people are saying, Grassley and Roberts are saying, or Johnson, excuse me, are saying, why didn't she have to register as a foreign agent? I mean, this is what Manafort was charged with. This is what Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was charged with, the Dem operative in Washington, trying to help the Democrats and the Ukrainians, facilitating all this corruption that the Democrats are seeking. And Grassley, at least they're pointing out to the DOJ, why isn't this a problem? I'm telling you, there are many people in Washington neck deep in what happened inside the FBI, inside the Department of Justice, trying to take down Trump, neck deep in it. They're also fully aware of all the corruption that went on under the Obama administration, with Hillary trying to use Ukrainians, with Biden on open television telling you how he did arm twist the Ukrainians. And these people in Washington are using this Trump did something impeachable in a phone conversation, urging Zelensky to look into the Biden-Ukrainian thing. It is so beyond the pale. It is that, we used to use that expression that whenever the mainstream media and the Democrats, which is, redundant, when the two of them wanted to distract America's attention from something wrong, they would do that, oh, look, squirrel, squirrel. And just like a dog will jump and run out the back door and chase a squirrel, they're trying to get the American people to say, look, shiny object, squirrel, look at, this is Trump, a terrible conversation. I mean, I think Trump actually tripped them up quite a bit by just almost instantaneously saying, I'll release the conversation. I don't mind. Let me show you exactly what it was. He's made it harder for them to make their point or to make allegations about the Zelensky-Trump phone call, because he's saying, no, I'll tell you all about it. But in closing, in this segment, I want to encourage you to recognize that this impeachment effort by the left is just a cover-up effort. They want to cover their trail. They want to distract the American people and the media from what really happened at the Ukraine between the Democrats and them. So they're starting down on this Trump-Ukrainian effort. And this is just folks, I truly think, as I said previously in the show, I think this will backfire because the facts are not on their side.